Hello, my dear friends. Hope all are fine and doing good. I am good as well. Uh, we have seen a lot of core projects based on Arduino and IoT and all those things. So, for a change, I would like to discuss few points about the renewable energy system. So, what I am going to discuss in the series of video is about what is this renewable energy system is all about, and what other type of renewable energy sources are available, and why we need to go for this when we have a conventional power system which is providing electrical power all over the globe. Why we need to go for these renewable energy sources, what are the advantages and drawbacks of these renewable energy sources, and how far it is economical, and how far it is grown in the growth countries to the country which is growing, and what is the scope in the future, and each and every renewable energy sources, how it differs from each other, how it converts, or how the original form of these energies are getting converted into electrical energy, what are the equipments needed, how this energy conversion takes places, and how far it is feasible for us in the future this renewable energy system is all. So there are many points to discuss, and there are different renewable energy sources are available each and every day. There are a lot of research going on, and we are talking about electrical vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and so many new things are coming up. How these renewable energy sources are linked with our day-to-day life, and in this series of video we are going to discuss a lot of things about this. Hope you will enjoy this series of video, and let us begin with the introduction to the renewable energy system. Before we discuss about this renewable energy system, let us understand few basic electrical concepts or the terminologies which we use in day-to-day life. So the pure electrical terminology, electrical grid, is a very common word which we hear every day, day-to-day life. What do you mean by this electrical grid? So if you take a electrical power system, so it has many components in it. So where we have a power generation unit, and we have the substation, and then we have the transmission lines, and then again we have some substations, and then we have a distribution system, and finally we have different type of consumers. So we have industrial consumer, commercial consumer, residential consumers. All those things are connected together. So this system is called as electrical grid. So where we have different type of energy generating places, like we may have a thermal power station, or we have hydro power plant, or we may have wind power plant, or we may be having solar power plant to produce the electrical energy, and then it is being stepped up to the required voltage and current levels, and then it is being transmitted over a long distance or the required distance, and then it is getting distributed to the consumers at different voltage levels. So this total system is called as electrical grid. Usually the generating stations are very far from the consumers. In some places, of course, you will have nearby areas, but mostly the consumers are from very far a distance from the generating station. So let us keep these things in one side. Let us go to the next word which we need to understand. So the new terminology, it is a microgrid. So what you mean by this microgrid, and how it is differ from this the conventional grid, or you can call it as a macro grid. So the microgrid is all about the total system is located in a nearby place. Say for example, you have a generating station, and you have a short transmission or very short transmission line, and you have the consumer and control unit, everything in a very limited area or a region. So you will not have very long transmission lines, and whatever the consumer requirement from that particular region, accordingly the power will be generated and it will be transmitted to all the customers, and you will have a control unit there, whether you need to connect it to the macro grid or you can work as a standalone grid. So this system is nothing but a micro grid system. So where you want autonomous power generation, and you feed all your customers without depend on the microgrid. So what is the advantage of this system? If you take the macro grid system, the power is being generated in one place and it is transmitted to long distance. So the initial investment for these transmission lines is the first big problem. So you need to install all these channels, and then we have to lay off this grid, and whatever the requirement things for this the required distance we have to transmit this energy. And during this transmission of energy from one place to another place, unavoidably we have a lot of electrical losses which is happening there. And because of these reasons, what we are going to do, we want to avoid these losses and we want to produce the energy nearby, and then we have to feed to the customer requirement as per this. Okay, so for this reason, so we are getting lot of microgrids now. So if it is microgrid we are using now, why can't they have not used it earlier? Because the earlier system, we had the conventional energy production system where you need a thermal power plant or nuclear power plant, or some sort of conventional power plants where we have a coal burning or the gas or diesel kind of things you burn, and then you produce a steam, and then you run a generator, and then you produce this. So for this all setup you need a lot of water, and then you have to keep away from your city of this one. So many limitations was there, where you need a thermal power plant, you need a lot of water. So but now we have this renewable energy sources, so that what happens, you have the flexibility of erecting the power station, where if you have sunlight more in your local region, you can have a solar system. If you have wind power, you can erect a lot of wind turbines, or you can have a hybrid system of these two, or you can have, if you have a lot of coastal area, you can have marine based energy production, or you can go for a geothermal power plants. So now this since we have this renewable energy popping up, so we have lot of opportunities to erect the grid or the power production in the localized area, so that we can give or we can feed the energy to the required people. So even though might be we can think that it is either it is a hybrid system, or you may have a backup production like say I have a solar and I may have a backup generating part using a diesel or petrol or whatever it is, or I may have the other like geothermal supporting geothermal or marine based system, something like that, or you may have the conventional grid also get connected to it. So this is about the microgrid and macrogrid. And there is another new word. It's not new word, actually the mostly used word, smart grid. So the smart grid is nothing but actually in the grid we are introducing a lot of eyes to watch. So the conventional grid doesn't have much sensors, only few sensors here and there to control capabilities. But now we are introducing a lot of sensors, so that what is happening, you have the feasibility of getting the characteristics of the load, the transmission line, and so many other parameters as well. How the generating capabilities are differing with different months, and then with respect to different time, the region, or so many factors, so you will get a lot of data. And say, for example, you are observing the behavior of a transformer, how this behavior is changing in a winter season, summer season, and rainy season. So how this behavior is changing. So in the transmission line, how the losses are changing. In the morning, how the losses are, afternoon and evening. So lot of sensors being introduced, and then you get a lot of data so that you can predict or forecast each and every parameters of the grid. And also the consumers are, before they usually consume the power from the the grid. But nowadays, since we are having the renewable sources like the solar system or the wind system or geothermal system, so what they do, they generate also the power, and then this power, if they have surplus, they can also feed it back to the grid. So what happens now? The consumers are becoming the prosumers, so where they produce also consume. So the role of the consumer is changed now, so that all are generating the power, and then it is a bidirectional flow. And then also the lot of difference is there between the normal conventional grid and the smart grid. You see, in a smart grid, they give a lot of feasibility to the customers, so if you are having a like a battery vehicle or a electrical vehicle, so if you charge them in the peak time, when the grid is loaded, peak time, that time if you are using this kind of a charging devices and all those things, the tariff will be different. And then in the off peak time, if you are using the energy, so your tariff will be different. So a lot of feasibilities and possibilities are available with the smart grid, because now we can able to get the information, each and every information about the customer, as well as about the production, and then the transmission line and everything. So lot of decisions are made autonomously, even without the human intervention. So of course these are programmed controls only, but still it is given some freedom for the technology to take a decision, so that the system is becoming intelligent. So this is what it's all about. So these data, whatever you obtain, we can use it as a big data, and then we can analyze it, so that we can forecast the customer requirement, and then the energy production level, the transmission losses, and breakdowns of the transmission line or the equipments. So many things we can predict, and then accordingly we can plan, so that the energy efficient way you can produce and consume. So this is the advantage of a smart grid. And smart grid, we also have the meters also acting as a smart meters, where it will have a bidirectional communication. So it will communicate with the supplier as well as to the consumer, and then it is a bidirectional metering system. So where the conventional system will have only the energy consumed by the consumer will be calculated, but now when you are feeding back the energy to the grid, it calculates both, and then the net result will be given to you. Only you will pay for that, or you will receive the money for what you are feed to the grid. So there are a lot of things about this smart grid. So we will discuss about the smart grid in a separate title. So now let us have a general idea about the terminologies which is being used. So when we have a smart grid, of course, we will have the smart cities as well. So we will see about that also in the later forthcoming videos. Then the other word which is widely used is distributed power generation, which is also very much related to the microgrid system. So in the conventional power generation, we have the centralized power generation. So a bigger power plant will be placed in some location where you get the water and all the resources, and then from there energy is produced, and it will be transmitted over a long transmission line, and which will be fed to the consumers. So there will be a lot of losses, a lot of maintenance works, and there are a lot of initial investments, and all those things are the drawbacks of this centralized power generation. And also If the generating station has a problem, of course the more number of consumers will be affected, because it is only one generating station. Of course, if any problem is there, then more number of consumers will be not getting the power. But the centralized power generation is changed to distributed power generation, where you will have a lot of different energy sources are available. So when you come to the renewable sources, you will have a geothermal or solar, or it may be a wind, or marine energy. So you have the feasibility, whatever the available energy source, based on that you generate it. It might not be same like the centralized generating station. That much huge megawatts may not be produced, but the required amount of energy will be produced for that. At least local region will be fed by that. Also, it is connected with the grid, but it can work also standalone, like islanding mode. So this is the advantage of it. If even though if the central generation is get affected also, the local region will be fed by this local generating station, or the vice versa case. If the local generating station is having a problem, so the power will be taken from the grid. So this is the advantage of this distributed power generation. So that means if you are consuming 100 megawatts of power in one particular region, so this 100 megawatts power is need not to be transmitted from the centralized generating station all over the distance to the customer area, say 100 kilometer or 200 kilometers. But since the localized power generation takes place, so only the extra power which is required only will be transmitted, so the losses can be reduced, and lot of feasibilities can be put into action. So this is the advantage of distributed power generation. So this distributed power generation getting focus point because of this renewable energy sources. Conventionally it was not possible, but now since we are having each and every house also can be a one small power station, so which produces a power for its own purpose. Also it can feed back to the grid. So in future we will see every house will be generating the power, and then it will be using for its own usage, and its surplus power will be fed back to the grid, or vice versa case. Yeah, so it's about a distributed power generation. And now let us see what is renewable energy. So it means the energy source which is not going to run out in very nearby time period. So this is called renewable energy. So any energy, the fossil fuel or whatever we have, so we have a certain amount of resource. If we are keep consuming it, it is going to be finished in one particular time. But these renewable energy sources, whatever we are talking about, geothermal or solar energy or the wind, so these are not going to get over by nearby time. Yeah, so the renewable energy sources are going to be available for at least for 10 or 15 generations, or more than that as well. We don't know how much time we are going to be there and how much time we are going to utilize this. So these energy sources are not going to end at any close time period. So that's why we call this as a renewable energy sources. Like sun, today we are utilizing 10 megawatts from the sun. So that doesn't mean that the sun will become light. The brightness of the sun is going to reduce tomorrow. No, again the sun tomorrow it is going to come with the same brightness. And vice versa cases, wind is there, we are utilizing the wind power, and then we are producing the electrical energy. So it doesn't mean that tomorrow the wind will blow slowly. Okay, so the wind is going to be always be there, so we are going to use it or not, it is going to be in the same way. So these kind of energy sources like geothermal, the temperature of the earth we are going to use. So this temperature of the earth, the core of the earth which is having the temperature, so this is not going to get over when I am using this energy for the energy production. So like these energy sources are called as renewable energy sources. The energy which doesn't run out will be called as renewable energy sources. And energy that can be used without reducing its availability in the future. As I told you, the sunlight is not going to reduce if I use sunlight to produce 100 megawatts or 1 gigawatts. Tomorrow it is not going to reduce as. So these are the few renewable energy sources. At present, we have hydropower, marine energy, solar energy, wind energy, geothermal, and bioenergy. Let us actually, we will see each and every energy sources in detail in the forthcoming videos. So we will discuss about the hydropower, what are the different type of method of hydropower generation takes place. Marine energy, of course, we have different type of marine energy production system, electrical production system. Solar, yeah, again we have different types. So we have a PV based system and heat based system, and wind energy, again we have different types. Geothermal, we have different type of system as well. Bioenergy, so, and we will also see what are the comparison between these energy sources, which is visible with at which point, and all those things in the forthcoming videos. So that's it about for today's video, or this video. So we have discussed about a few electrical terminologies which is coined over this power system, and we have just seen what are the energy sources, renewable energy sources available with the renewable system. With this, we will wind up. So the next video, I will start with each and every different energy sources, and I will discuss about in and details. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us see in the next video. Until then, it's me, Rajababu. Bye bye. Take care.